You fooled me once, but I'm not letting that happen again, and y'all start calling me a bum. So maybe it's time we talk about an early upstart energy drink brand. To help decode the initial part of that introductory statement, I need to briefly, but obviously in a more generalized way, explain a past strategic management consulting engagement. Within a pretty broad scope, there were project components that either directly or indirectly involved filling a brand awareness gap. As you might assume, the core methodology of increasing brand awareness includes the utilization of different media types, like owned or earned, and so on and so forth. And within the shared media bucket was a collection of brand ambassadors that had various levels of potential value generation. But of those, the most valuable was an up and coming bodybuilder named Chris Bumstead. As some of you know, I'm one of those like oddballs that doesn't really subscribe to the trend around parasocial relationships. My social media accounts are filled with almost exclusively personal friends, professional colleagues, and brands, but maybe a few childhood sports idols or individuals I find exceptionally intriguing for whatever reason. So, when any client asks me to analyze brand ambassador rosters or to vet certain potential talent additions, I'm usually starting from scratch with my personal knowledge of those individuals. But through my analysis of Chris Bumstead, back when he had, I think, right around 1 million followers on Instagram, I came to a lot of great conclusions that I'll expand on next. Yet, I'll also be the first to admit that I underestimated his eventual mainstream appeal. See, fast forward a handful of years later, and that same individual has something like 24 million followers on Instagram. If you're surprised by how big that number is, do you also realize that's 9 million more than Tom Brady or 16 million more than any current Major League Baseball player? I could keep going on with these shocking comparisons, but my point is that many of the most successful athletes involved in much bigger sports platforms struggle to build audiences on digital platforms. And my feeling is that it involves something I recently mentioned in a conversation I had with the ex Olympian and consumer VC Samir Lane. And I think some of these ones, especially we're talking, athletes, and I think if we're talking maybe entertainers or musicians or something like that, a lot of them have to get, and I think this is changing very rapidly now, but like you have to get away from the facade of like, I'm this, if we're using male athletes or something like the toughness, or like I have to be this, um, warrior or whatever, and you get into, as an example, something like Jason Kelsey or something like that, like pulls this into like, I'm just a normal, father, husband, like I'm joking around with my brother, I'm doing this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, I'm doing all that. Like you show so many layers, and then somebody that is a fan of you because your playing skill, that's great. They would buy your jersey maybe, or they root for your
Yeah.
team. But like when you start to then talk about other things and you want to sell whatever, it's the other layers that ultimately get people to be attached and interested and creates connectivity,
Yeah.
because that's really what most people see in themselves is like, oh, that's just another guy. I see him in my, like, I love that he's a great dad, or I love that this is that. I don't
Yep.
care that he could push around other 300-pound men, because I can't. Like, there's no
Yeah.
relatability to that. But the relatability is that, hey, this dude is busy as hell and he's doing all this stuff with his kids and his brother's family and whatever. Like, he seems like a good guy. And if he's going to pitch something that is relatable to me, then hey, I might support him because I want to support, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
That's no, I couldn't have said it better. It's The Rock having tea parties with his daughter, letting his
Yeah.
daughter paint his face or paint his nails, and
Yes, Chris Bumstead is this icon of his sport, but he's more importantly a beacon of vulnerability and authenticity. People love to see external growth, whether winning championships or having business success, but showing everything amazing or boring or terrible that led to that point, and internally staying true to yourself is what provides real impact and usually a massively engaged audience on digital platforms, because athletes should no longer just be competing on the field, court, stage, whatever. They must also be harnessing the power of authentic personal branding to better compete within the attention economy. That being said, athletes seem to be quickly learning that collaborations and endorsements are great, But the most lucrative aspect of authentic personal branding is when they can understand how to properly articulate and aestheticize their defining personality traits. This is no different than the trending movement that involves non sports celebrity talent or creators becoming powerful consumer brands. And that's because it's those rare, authentic individuals who can also hold consumer attention that ultimately have the opportunity to become the most sought after assets in the world and potentially the biggest consumer product brands of tomorrow. Which maybe brings us full circle to Chris Bumstead and his attempt at becoming a large consumer product brand. So let's start at arguably the most important first decision of that pursuit, which is choosing the right product that properly articulates and aestheticizes their defining personality traits. The most obvious answer is within sports nutrition supplements. And Chris Bumstead has equity exposure in that functional CPG category when he joined the ownership team of Raw Nutrition in late 2021. But that was an existing startup brand and not something where Chris Bumstead could get his hands on every aspect within the initial ideation and conceptualization phases. So the next most obvious answer would be an adjacent active nutrition, food, or beverage form factors, right? My understanding is that he's involved in Raw Nutrition co founder's protein snacking brand Vaughn's Treats, since it's among the group's business portfolio that centers around serial entrepreneur Dominic Eichenbaum. But again, that isn't majority influenced by Chris Bumstead, which leads us to the last remaining obvious answer: functional beverages. Beverages offering more than enjoyment aren't just a passing fad, instead, a reflection of a deeper secular trend towards health conscious consumption. In fact, it's my belief that consumers are moving closer towards this four-way intersection of taste, convenience, nutrition, and functionality. And recent marketplace activity supports my conviction, with spins data noting that almost 2 out of every 5 beverage sales are now dedicated to products that promote health benefits. You've likely often heard me mention that demand growth breeds commercialization activity. And functional beverage innovation has been on fire, outpacing many other CPG categories across the grocery space. Today, it seems every multi billion dollar beverage category is in the early innings of a remarkable transformation as hundreds of brands are competing for consumer attention with wellness focused marketing and functionality of ingredients. But energy drinks continue to dominate in terms of market share growth, partly because the category has shown this almost sixth sense ability to evolve, appealing to a wide range of active lifestyle consumers with varied energy needs throughout the day. And this is where Bum Energy enters the conversation because Chris Bumstead made some very intentional decisions when he created his energy drink brand that launched basically a year ago in July of 2023. I'll start with the liquid in the can because we are talking about the CPG space. So, the right product part of the celebrity packaged goods trend also needs to be a great product to compete in today's low barriers to entry marketplace. I think Bum Energy made a few great decisions on the liquid in the can, starting with its simple composition of natural caffeine and the brain boosting functional ingredient cognizant. Along with that, Bum Energy chose 112 milligrams of caffeine, the same amount as an average 12-ounce cup of coffee, and wrapped everything up in delightfully light flavors, giving the consumer optionality to drink more than one can without overstimulation or flavor fatigue. And it seems the publicly available feedback loops agree with my assessment, with early Amazon ratings at 4.8, which is slightly ahead of the incubated in sports nutrition major energy drink players of C4 Energy, Ghost, and Alani Nu. From a branding perspective, the vibe they seem to be going for is this 90s coastal lifestyle. I wouldn't say the brand touchpoints are very consistent, but packaging and most of its visual assets lean in that direction. Since I don't know Chris Bumstead, I'm not sure if that's an aesthetic he picked up recently by living in South Florida or if he dreamed about it as a kid living in Canada. But quick sleuthing for the content didn't authentically connect the dots for me. But let's move on to the brand name, which essentially drops the C from his nickname. And I understand leveraging the talent's name to increase awareness and potentially trial. Additionally, I think the term bum can be moldable from a messaging standpoint. And after a year of the marketing team dabbling with that messaging, I could see some potential bum brand storytelling paths that could eventually distance the brand from Chris Bumstead. But it's going to take a very concerted effort if they want to nail that transition strategy, because that's the catch 22 situation around the talent led brand movement that few people mention. Many ignorant pundits think that having an uber popular celebrity co founder solves every challenge in competitive CPG spaces and almost guarantees success. But what is the definition of success for celebrity packaged goods brands? Logan Paul doesn't want to sell flavored electrolyte waters forever. Mr. Beast doesn't want to sell chocolate bars forever. Max Tuning doesn't want to sell sour candy forever, right? It takes transitioning away from the talent, and that's fucking easier said than done, with the proof being currently the lack of successful acquisitions by strategic buyers in CPG categories outside of alcohol. And when I mean alcohol, it's mostly spirits. So, the main strategic focus of Bump Energy in this initial phase needs to be leveraging Chris Bumstead to pull forward awareness and generate sales, but in a tactful manner that doesn't ruin the long term transition strategy. But speaking about sales and revenue, let's end off the content by exploring how Bum Energy is performing in the marketplace and what's the brand's outlook for the future. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that syndicated retail sales data won't tell the entire story on a brand like Bum Energy. That's because one, the energy drink brand just passed its 1 year anniversary. Two, its initial sales channel strategy was specialty supplement retailers and online, which are untracked. Three, it doesn't have a significant amount of large retail placements or DSD distribution. And finally, those sparse large retail placements are newer, which usually means early operational or partnership hiccups are being worked through that could be throttling its early retail sales data. But according to a recent last 52-week Circana Mulo plus C retail sales report, Bum Energy would be right around breaking, I think, the top 100 brands. If you look at more recent performance of the last 4 weeks, Bum Energy would be around the top 70 brands. That probably doesn't mean much to you, but quantifying that last 4 week market share on an annualized run rate would be around a $500,000 in retail sales. Again, those numbers don't include the bulk of Bum Energy retail sales, at least that I assume, from e commerce options like Amazon, direct from the brand, or something like TikTok Shop, specialty supplement retailers like the small ones, or even the Vitamin Shop and GNC, or international exports. And then, what do I think that the future outlook of Bum Energy looks like? Even without considering any increased activity from those non tracked channels, because in the long run, those aren't material within the energy drinks market. Even if they provide beneficiary support, my best guess would be that previously stated track channel annualized run rate number will be meaningfully light. That's because Bum Energy will have more time to unlock its winning growth strategy in current strong regional grocers like HEB and convenience stores like Quick Trip, but also get further placements in similar retailers that build momentum in the back half of 2025. Additionally, Bum Energy should get better overall at its brand storytelling and find more commercially compelling marketing partnerships like what it's doing with the Nelk Boys and the Full Send podcast. Finally, Bum Energy will make the needed human capital additions to really take a swing at moving up the energy drinks market rankings. Because of that, seeing tracked channel annualized run rate numbers in the million or multi million range should be highly probable within the middle of next year. But I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, consider hitting that like button to support me. Also help me get to my new short-term goal of 4,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that slightly more than 90% of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.